My entire family blocked me after I refused to pay for my cousin's wedding. "You're selfish and dead to us," my aunt texted. 6 months later, they all showed up at my office building, desperate and homeless, not knowing, who had foreclosed on all their homes. The notification sound on my phone felt like a slap across the face. Another wedding expense demand from my cousin Madison. This time, it was for the $15,000 ice sculpture shaped like swans that she absolutely had asterisked to have for her reception. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in my hands, and felt something inside me finally snap. "Hi everyone, I'm Jessica and I'm 28 years old. Before I dive into this story that completely changed my life, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I love connecting with people from all over the world who understand what it's like to be the family scapegoat. And if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this ends." Let me paint you a picture of the Morrison family dynamics. My parents, Robert and Linda Morrison, had 3 kids, my older brother Tyler, me, and my younger sister Chloe. But somehow I was always the outsider. Tyler was the golden boy star athlete, business degree, could do no wrong. Chloe was the baby princess who got everything handed to her. And me, I was the responsible one, the one they called when they needed money, help, or someone to blame when things went wrong. My Aunt Patricia was Linda's sister, and she had 2 daughters, Madison, who was getting married, and her younger sister Brooke. Patricia had always treated me like I owed the family something just for existing. Growing up, while Tyler got expensive sports equipment and Chloe got designer clothes, I worked 3 part-time jobs through high school and college to pay my own way. When I graduated summa cum laude with a finance degree, the family dinner conversation centered around Tyler's latest girlfriend and Chloe's spring break plans. My achievement was an afterthought. The pattern continued into adulthood. When Tyler's business failed spectacularly, he'd invested our parents' retirement savings in some cryptocurrency scheme. Guess who they called? Me. I spent $50,000 of my own money to bail them out, money I'd been saving for my first house down payment. When Chloe racked up $20,000 in credit card debt during her finding herself phase in Europe again, they turned to me. I paid it off without question because, well, that's what family does, right? But Madison's wedding was different. It started small, just a request to help with flowers, maybe contribute to the dress. Then it snowballed. The venue suddenly cost more. The catering needed upgrading. The band required a higher deposit. Every week brought new demands, and somehow I'd become the designated family ATM. The requests weren't even polite anymore. They were demands, expectations, like I owed them my financial support. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening in March. I was in my apartment, exhausted from a 12-hour day at the investment firm where I worked as a financial analyst, when my phone exploded with messages. Madison had sent a group text to the entire extended family, all 23 members, with a detailed breakdown of wedding expenses and who was expected to pay what. My name was next to $45,000 worth of items. $45,000. For someone else's wedding. I stared at that number until my eyes watered. That was more than most people made in a year. That was my emergency fund, my security, my peace of mind. And they just expected it. No discussion, no asking if I could afford it, no consideration of my own financial goals or needs. The group chat was already buzzing with responses. Tyler had typed, "Sounds reasonable, Jess has always been good with money." Chloe added, "Yeah, she doesn't spend money on anything fun anyway, lol." My mother chimed in with, "Jessica, we know you'll do the right thing for family." The right thing for family. I'd been doing the right thing for family my entire life, and what had it gotten me? I was 28, living in a 1-bedroom apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda Civic, while my siblings lived in houses I'd helped them buy with my bailout money. I called my best friend from college, Marcus Thompson. Marcus had watched me navigate my family's dysfunction for years, and he was one of the few people who understood just how toxic the dynamic had become. "Jess," he said after I explained the latest demand, "you know this is insane, right? $45,000 for a wedding that isn't even yours." "But it's family, Marcus, they've always." I mean, this is just what we do. No, Jess, this is what they do asterisk to you. When was the last time any of them helped you with anything? When Tyler's business failed, did he pay you back? When Chloe needed that credit card debt covered, did she even say thank you? The silence on my end answered his question. You need to set boundaries, Marcus continued. Real ones. This isn't about the money. Well, it is about the money, but it's about respect. They don't respect you because you don't respect yourself enough to say no. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, Marcus's words echoing in my head. He was right. I'd been so focused on being the good daughter, the reliable sister, that I'd forgotten I had a choice in all of this. The next morning, I crafted a careful response to the group chat. I appreciate being included in Madison's wedding planning, but I won't be able to contribute financially at this level. I'd be happy to help in other ways, addressing invitations, helping with setup, etc. I hope you understand. The response was swift and brutal. Patricia was first, disappointed but not surprised. You've always been selfish. My mother followed. Jessica, this is your cousin's special day. Family comes first. Tyler jumped in. Come on, Jess, you make good money. What else are you spending it on? Madison herself sent a private message. I can't believe you're abandoning me like this. I thought we were close. But it was Chloe's message that cut the deepest. Honestly embarrassed to call you my sister right now. What's the point of having money if you won't help family? The group chat devolved into a character assassination. I was selfish, greedy, ungrateful, cold-hearted. My Aunt Patricia sent a long message detailing everything the family had done for me over the years, which apparently included letting me attend family gatherings and not charging me rent when I lived at home during college summers. By evening, the personal attacks had started. My phone buzzed constantly with individual messages from various family members, each one more hurtful than the last. My Uncle Dave, Patricia's husband, sent me a novel-length text about family loyalty and how I was destroying Madison's dreams. My cousin Brooke, Madison's sister, sent a simple but effective, "You're dead to us." The final blow came from my own mother. Your father and I are reconsidering your place in this family. Maybe it's time you found people who share your values, since you clearly don't share ours. I screenshotted everything. Every cruel message, every guilt trip, every threat. I saved them all in a folder on my phone called Family Truth. Something told me I might need them later. By the weekend, I was completely cut off. Every family member had blocked me on social media. My calls went straight to voicemail. When I drove past my parents' house on Sunday, our traditional family dinner day, I could see everyone's cars in the driveway. Everyone except mine was welcome. The isolation was devastating. These people had been my entire support system, my identity, my sense of belonging. Even though the relationship was toxic, it was familiar. Now I was truly alone, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, family, and loyalty. I threw myself into work. My boss, Catherine Chen, noticed the change in my performance immediately, but not in the way I expected. Jessica, she said during our monthly one-on-one meeting, I don't know what's different, but you've been absolutely on fire these past few weeks. The Henderson portfolio analysis was brilliant, and your recommendations on the Westfield merger potentially saved us millions. Are you taking some kind of performance enhancement drugs? She laughed, but I could tell she was genuinely curious. The truth was, without the constant drain of family drama, without the endless financial requests and emotional manipulation, I had energy I didn't know I possessed. I was sleeping better, thinking clearer, and performing at a level that surprised even me. I've just been able to focus more lately, I told her honestly. Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. I'm recommending you for the senior analyst position that's opening up. It comes with a significant salary bump, and more importantly, it puts you on the track for partnership consideration. That night, I called Marcus to share the news. We met for drinks at our favorite bar downtown, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. You know what the crazy part is, I told him, sipping my wine. I keep waiting to feel guilty about not paying for the wedding, but I don't. I feel free. That's because you're finally living your life instead of bankrolling theirs, Marcus said. "Have you heard anything from them since the blocking?" Radio silence, complete and total radio silence. It's like I never existed. Marcus raised his glass. "Here's to new beginnings and to family that actually deserves you." I clinked my glass against his, but part of me still felt hollow. Despite everything, I missed them. I missed the sense of belonging, even if it came with strings attached. 3 months passed in this strange new reality. I threw myself into work with an intensity that bordered on obsession. The senior analyst promotion came through, along with a $40,000 salary increase. I started investing more aggressively, building the portfolio I'd always dreamed of but never had the capital to pursue. Catherine pulled me into her office on a Friday afternoon in June with an unusual request. "Jessica, I have a proposition for you, and I want you to consider it carefully. We've been watching your work, and frankly, you're operating at a level far above your current position. Have you ever considered going out on your own?" I blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "I mean starting your own investment firm. Look, I'll be direct. Our company has been looking to diversify our investment strategies, and we're particularly interested in real estate development and acquisition. Your analysis on undervalued properties has been exceptional. We'd be willing to provide seed funding for you to start your own firm, with our company as your first major client." The offer was staggering. $2 million in seed funding, a guaranteed 5-year contract worth $500,000 annually, and complete autonomy to build my own business. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, the kind of break most people never get. "There's one catch," Catherine continued. "It would require you to relocate. We want you to focus on the Midwest market, specifically Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. Lots of undervalued properties, growing cities, good investment potential. You'd be based out of Columbus, but you'd have territory across 3 states. Columbus, 800 miles away from my family, from the toxicity, from the painful memories. It felt like the universe offering me a fresh start." "When would you need an answer?" I asked. "Take the weekend, think about it. This is a big decision." That Saturday, I walked around my neighborhood, really seeing it for the first time in months. The coffee shop where I'd spent countless hours stress-eating pastries while fielding family financial requests. The park where I'd cried on the phone with my mother after Tyler's business failed. The restaurant where I'd celebrated Chloe's college graduation, picking up the tab for the entire extended family dinner. Every location held memories of me giving, sacrificing, supporting, and receiving nothing in return. Marcus was right. I'd been living their lives instead of my own. On Monday morning, I walked into Catherine's office with my answer. "I'll take it." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork, planning, and preparation. I gave my landlord notice, started researching Columbus, and began the legal work of establishing Morrison Investment Solutions. Yes, I kept the family name for my business, not out of loyalty, but as a reminder of what I'd overcome. By August, I was settled in a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in Columbus's Short North District. The city was vibrant, growing, full of young professionals and entrepreneurs. For the first time in my adult life, I was surrounded by people who didn't know my history, didn't have expectations of me, didn't see me as a walking ATM. I dove into the real estate market with the analytical skills I'd honed over years in traditional investment. But this was different. This was tangible, properties I could walk through, improvements I could visualize, communities I could help revitalize. My first major acquisition was a cluster of rundown rental properties in a gentrifying neighborhood near Ohio State University. The owner was desperate to sell, asking $800,000 for 6 buildings that, with some renovation, could easily be worth $1.5 million. I put together a comprehensive renovation plan, secured additional funding, and closed the deal. The renovation took 3 months. I hired local contractors, used sustainable materials, and transformed these neglected buildings into modern, affordable housing for graduate students and young professionals. By December, all units were occupied with a waiting list of potential tenants. That first deal established my reputation in Columbus real estate circles. Word spread quickly about the young woman who could identify undervalued properties and transform them into profitable investments. My phone started ringing with opportunities. The second major acquisition came in February, a small commercial building in downtown Columbus that had been sitting empty for 2 years. The asking price was $1.2 million, but I saw potential for mixed-use development. I negotiated it down to $900,000 and spent another $600,000 converting it into luxury lofts on the upper floors and trendy retail space on the ground level. By March, Morrison Investment Solutions had a portfolio worth over $4 million and growing. I was featured in Columbus Business Weekly as one of the city's 30 under 30 rising entrepreneurs. The article described my uncanny ability to identify hidden value in overlooked properties. But the real breakthrough came in April, when I was approached by a consortium of investors looking to redevelop an entire city block in Cleveland. The project was massive, $50 million in total investment to transform a decaying industrial area into mixed-use residential and commercial space. They wanted Morrison Investment Solutions to lead the feasibility analysis and, if the numbers worked, to serve as the primary investment partner. I spent 2 weeks in Cleveland, walking every inch of that neighborhood, analyzing demographics, studying traffic patterns, researching zoning laws. The area was rough now, but it was perfectly positioned between downtown Cleveland and the trendy University Circle district. With the right development, it could become the bridge between two thriving areas. My analysis was comprehensive. Total investment of $52 million over 3 phases, projected return of $85 million over 5 years, with substantial positive impact on the surrounding community. The consortium accepted my proposal unanimously. Morrison Investment Solutions was now the lead partner in one of Ohio's largest urban redevelopment projects. By late spring, I was managing a portfolio worth over $20 million. I'd hired a small team, Sarah, my brilliant research analyst fresh out of Wharton, and David, an experienced project manager who'd worked on major developments across the Midwest. We'd outgrown my apartment's spare bedroom office and moved into a sleek suite in downtown Columbus. I was finally living the life I'd always dreamed of, but never thought I deserved. I had challenging, meaningful work that made a real difference in communities. I had financial security beyond anything I'd imagined possible. I had a team of people who respected my expertise and valued my leadership. Most importantly, I had friends, real friends. Marcus visited regularly, marveling at the transformation in my confidence and happiness. I joined a young professionals group in Columbus and connected with people who shared my interests and ambitions. Sarah and David had become not just colleagues, but genuine friends who supported and challenged me. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't defined by my family's needs and expectations. I was Jessica Morrison, successful entrepreneur, respected investor, valuable friend. Not Jessica the family ATM, Jessica the scapegoat, Jessica the disappointment. The irony wasn't lost on me. In cutting me off, my family had forced me to become the person I was always meant to be. It was a humid Tuesday morning in September when my past came crashing back into my present. I was in my office, reviewing proposals for the next phase of the Cleveland project, when Sarah knocked on my door. "Jessica, there's a group of people in the lobby asking to see you. They say they're family, but they're not on your approved visitor list." My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. Family. After 18 months of complete silence, they were here. "Did they give names?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "The woman who seems to be leading them said her name is Linda Morrison. She claimed to be your mother." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. My mother, here in Columbus at my office. How had they even found me? "What should I tell them?" Sarah asked, clearly picking up on my distress. I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. "Give me 5 minutes, then bring them up to the conference room. And Sarah, whatever happens in there, I want you to document everything. Take notes, record if you can do it discreetly." Sarah nodded and left. I stood at my office window, looking down at the bustling Columbus Street below, and tried to calm my racing heart. They were here. After 18 months of treating me like I was dead to them, they were here. But why? What could possibly bring them to Columbus, to my office, to me? I walked to the conference room and waited. The door opened, and they filed in like a funeral procession. My mother Linda, looking older and more worn than I remembered. My father Robert, his shoulders stooped in a way that seemed new. My brother Tyler, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by something that looked almost like shame. My sister Chloe, avoiding eye contact entirely. My Aunt Patricia, looking around the conference room with obvious surprise at its elegance. And behind them, my Uncle Dave, Madison, and Brooke. 8 of them, the entire core family unit that had blocked me, banished me, written me off as selfish and dead to them. "Jessica," my mother began, her voice uncertain. "You look, well." I didn't respond immediately. I took my time studying each of their faces, noting the signs of strain, the expensive clothes that looked somehow desperate now, the way they shifted uncomfortably under my gaze. "This is unexpected," I said finally, my voice cool and professional. "Please sit down." They arranged themselves around the conference table, and I couldn't help but notice how small they seemed in this room, in this setting that I had built for myself. "We need to talk," Patricia said, jumping straight to the point. "There have been some developments." "Developments," I repeated flatly. Tyler cleared his throat. "Jess, look, we know things ended badly between us, but we're family, and family helps family." The audacity of that statement, the exact phrase they'd used to guilt me into countless financial bailouts, hit me like a physical blow. But instead of crumbling, I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. "I'm sorry," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I'm not sure I understand. According to my last communication from this group, I was dead to you." I believe Brooke's exact words were, "You're dead to us." So I'm a bit confused about who exactly you think you're talking to. Brooke flushed red and looked at the table. My mother leaned forward desperately. "Jessica, please, we said things in anger, we didn't mean." "You blocked me," I interrupted, my voice getting stronger. "Every single one of you, social media, phone numbers, everything. For 18 months, I haven't existed to you, so what changed?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, my father spoke. "We've had some financial setbacks," he said quietly. "Financial setbacks," I repeated. "Could you be more specific?" Patricia shot him a sharp look, but he continued. "The market took a downturn, some investments went bad, we lost the house." I felt a flicker of something, not quite satisfaction, but a cold sort of justice. "Which house?" "All of them," Tyler said miserably. "The foreclosure company that bought up all the mortgages, they're ruthless. They wouldn't negotiate, wouldn't work with us. It's like they specifically targeted our family." Something in his tone made my pulse quicken. "All of them? How many houses are we talking about?" "Your parents' house," Patricia listed. "Tyler's house, Chloe's condo, our house, Dave and Madison's place. 5 properties total." 5 properties, all foreclosed by the same company. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind was racing. "And you came here because?" "Because you're family," my mother said desperately. "Because despite our differences, we're blood, and we know you've done well for yourself." She gestured around the conference room. "This is beautiful, Jessica. You've built something amazing." "We researched you," Madison added quietly. "Morrison Investment Solutions. We saw the articles, the business profiles. You're successful, really successful." "And you think that success obligates me to help you?" I asked. "We think," Chloe said, finally speaking up, "that maybe we made a mistake. About the wedding, about cutting you off. Maybe we were wrong." Maybe they were wrong. 18 months of silence, of treating me like I was dead, and their apology was maybe we were wrong. "Tell me about this foreclosure company," I said, changing the subject. "What was their name?" Tyler pulled out some paperwork. "Columbus Capital Holdings. They bought all our mortgages from different banks and then immediately started foreclosure proceedings. We tried to negotiate, but they were completely inflexible." Columbus Capital Holdings. My subsidiary company. The one I'd established specifically for acquiring distressed mortgages and undervalued properties. The one that had been so successful because of my ability to identify properties whose owners were likely to default. Properties owned by people who lived beyond their means, who made poor financial decisions, who relied on others to bail them out of their mistakes. People exactly like my family. I had foreclosed on my own family's homes. Not intentionally, I'd had no idea they were among the mortgage portfolios I'd purchased. But the irony was so perfect, so poetic, that I had to fight to keep my expression neutral. That must have been very difficult, I said carefully. It was devastating, Patricia said. We've been staying in a motel for the past month. All of us, crowded into 3 rooms. The kids are out of school because we can't prove residency. Dave lost his job because he couldn't maintain his appearance without a proper address. We've lost everything, my mother added, tears starting to flow. Everything we worked for, everything we built, and we know we treated you badly, but you're the only one who can help us now. The only one who can help them, just like always. When things got desperate, when their backs were against the wall, when they had nowhere else to turn, they came to Jessica. Reliable Jessica. ATM Jessica. What exactly are you asking me to do? I said. We need somewhere to stay, Tyler said. Just temporarily while we get back on our feet, and maybe some financial help to get started again. How much financial help? Patricia pulled out a handwritten list. We've calculated that we'd need about $200,000 to get everyone back into stable housing situations. First and last month's rent, security deposits, basic furniture. And maybe another $100,000 as a buffer while we find new jobs and get reestablished. $300,000. They wanted $300,000 from the sister, daughter, and niece they had blocked, banished, and declared dead to them. I looked around the table at their desperate faces, and for a moment, I felt the old familiar pull. The ingrained response to fix their problems, to sacrifice my own stability for their needs, to be the good daughter, the reliable sister, the family ATM. But then I thought about the 18 months of silence, the cruel messages, the complete abandonment when I had dared to set a boundary, the years of one-sided giving before that. I need some time to think about this, I said finally. This is a big request, and I need to consider all the implications. Of course, my mother said eagerly. Of course, take all the time you need. We're staying at the Motel 6 on Broad Street, room 237, 238, and 239. They filed out as desperately as they had entered, leaving me alone in the conference room with the weight of their request and the shocking realization of what I had unknowingly done. I called Sarah and immediately. I need you to pull all the files on the Columbus Capital Holdings mortgage acquisitions, I said. Specifically, I need the details on 5 properties. I gave her the addresses I remembered from my childhood visits. 20 minutes later, Sarah returned with a thick folder. Jessica, she said, her voice careful, these mortgages were all part of the distressed property portfolio you acquired 6 months ago. According to these files, all 5 properties were significantly underwater, with owners who had missed multiple payments and shown no realistic ability to recover. I opened the folder and read through the financial profiles my own team had compiled. Tyler Morrison, $380,000 mortgage on a house worth $250,000, $4 months behind on payments, no steady income source. Robert and Linda Morrison, $420,000 mortgage on a house worth $280,000, $3 months behind, surviving on Social Security and Tyler's sporadic contributions. The pattern was the same across all 5 properties. Massive over-leveraging, missed payments, no realistic path to recovery. My team had done exactly what I'd trained them to do: identify properties where foreclosure was the only financially sound option. Sarah, I said slowly, have you ever heard the phrase, what goes around comes around? She looked puzzled. Of course, why? I need you to do some additional research for me. I want to know everything about these people's financial situations over the past 5 years. Credit reports, employment history, major purchases, everything we can legally access. The research took 2 days, but the picture it painted was exactly what I expected. My family had learned nothing from Tyler's business failure or Chloe's credit card debt. If anything, they'd gotten worse. Tyler had invested the bailout money I'd given him into another get-rich-quick scheme, cryptocurrency mining. When that failed, he'd borrowed against his house to invest in a multi-level marketing company selling essential oils. Patricia and Dave had co-signed on that loan, which is how they'd lost their house too. Madison had indeed had her dream wedding. The $45,000 I'd refused to pay had been covered by a combination of credit cards and a second mortgage on her parents' house. The marriage had lasted 8 months before ending in an expensive divorce that wiped out the rest of their savings. Chloe had dropped out of college after 2 semesters to become an influencer, racking up massive credit card debt, buying products to feature in posts that never gained traction. My parents had refinanced their house twice to cover her expenses. Every single financial disaster could have been avoided with basic fiscal responsibility. Every single foreclosure was the direct result of choices they'd made after cutting me out of their lives. They destroyed themselves, and now they wanted me to fix it. On Thursday evening, I drove to the Motel 6. The contrast between my sleek BMW and the rundown building was stark. I found them gathered in room 237, crowded together in a space barely large enough for 2 people, let alone 8 adults. "Jessica," my mother exclaimed, jumping up from the single chair. "We weren't expecting you so soon." "I've made my decision," I said, remaining standing while they arranged themselves on the 2 beds and the floor. The hope in their eyes was palpable. Even now, even after everything, they expected me to save them. "I'm not going to give you the money," I said simply. The silence was deafening. "But Jessica," Patricia started, "we're family." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "You've already established that I'm not family. You made that very clear 18 months ago. You blocked me, banished me, declared me dead to you. You can't undo that now just because you need something." "We said we were sorry," Chloe protested. "We admitted we were wrong." "You said maybe you were wrong. That's not an apology, that's hedging your bets." I looked around the room at their shocked faces. "But let's say it was an apology. Let's say you were genuinely sorry. That still doesn't obligate me to fix your problems." "These aren't just problems," Tyler said desperately. "We're homeless, we have nothing." "You have exactly what you chose," I replied coldly. "Every financial decision that led you here was made after you cut me out of your lives. Tyler, you invested your bailout money in cryptocurrency and MLM schemes. Madison, you had a $45,000 wedding that lasted 8 months. Chloe, you dropped out of college to buy followers on Instagram. Mom and Dad, you refinanced your house twice to enable their choices." Their faces went pale as they realized I knew the details of their financial destruction. "You researched us," Patricia said, her voice hollow. "I did exactly what you did. I researched successful Jessica Morrison, owner of Morrison Investment Solutions. And Morrison Investment Solutions doesn't make bad investments." I paused, letting that sink in. "You're bad investments, all of you. You've proven over and over that you can't be trusted with money, that you make emotional decisions instead of smart ones, that you expect other people to bail you out of your mistakes." "So that's it?" my mother asked, tears streaming down her face. "You're just going to let us stay homeless?" "You're not homeless by accident," I said. "You're homeless by choice. You chose to live beyond your means. You chose to make risky investments. You chose to prioritize appearances over stability. And when those choices had consequences, you chose to come to me instead of learning from your mistakes." I stood up, preparing to leave. "But here's what I will do. I'll give you the same advice I'd give any client. Get jobs, any jobs, and start living within your means. There are social services available to help people in your situation. There are employment assistance programs. There are financial counseling services. Use them." "Jessica, please," my father said, speaking for the first time. "We know we made mistakes, but we're family. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at the man who had raised me, who had taught me to ride a bike and helped me with homework and walked me down the aisle at my college graduation. And I felt nothing. No obligation, no guilt, no familial love. Just a cold, hard certainty that this chapter of my life was over. It meant something for 26 years, I said quietly. It meant something when I paid for Tyler's business failures and Chloe's credit card debt and your retirement savings. It meant something when I spent my house down payment to bail you out and never asked for a penny back. But the moment you decided I was dead to you for setting a boundary, you killed whatever family meant between us. I walked toward the door, then turned back one more time. Oh, and one more thing. Columbus Capital Holdings, the company that foreclosed on your houses, that's my company. I bought your mortgages as part of a distressed property portfolio, not knowing they were yours. But even if I had known, the outcome would have been the same. You were all terrible financial risks, and foreclosure was the only sound business decision. The looks of shock and horror on their faces would have been satisfying if I'd felt anything at all. But I didn't. I felt empty, clean, free. Goodbye, I said, and walked out of that motel room and out of their lives forever. 3 months later, I was featured on the cover of Midwest Business Journal as Entrepreneur of the Year. The accompanying article detailed Morrison Investment Solutions' rapid growth and my innovative approach to urban redevelopment. The Cleveland project was ahead of schedule and under budget, transforming a forgotten neighborhood into a thriving community. I'd moved out of my apartment and into a beautiful house in Columbus's historic German village, a house I'd renovated myself as my first personal real estate project. It had 4 bedrooms, a home office, and a garden where I'd started growing my own vegetables. It was peaceful, beautiful, and entirely mine. Marcus visited for the housewarming party, along with Sarah, David, and 24 other friends and colleagues I'd met in Columbus. We grilled burgers in the backyard, played music, and talked about everything except family drama. Any regrets? Marcus asked as we sat on my back porch, watching the sunset. About what? About not helping them, about walking away. I considered the question seriously. You know what's funny? I keep waiting to feel guilty about it, but I don't. For the first time in my adult life, I'm not responsible for anyone else's poor decisions. I'm not the family ATM, I'm not the scapegoat, I'm not the one who has to sacrifice my dreams to enable their dysfunction. What do you think happened to them? I shrugged. I assume they figured something out. People usually do when they don't have other options. I paused. Actually, Sarah did some follow-up research. Tyler and Chloe moved back in with my parents, who found a subsidized apartment in a rough part of town. Patricia and Dave moved to Cleveland to live with Patricia's other sister. Madison got a job at a call center. They're all working now, for the first time in years. Sounds like your refusal to help actually did help them. Maybe, or maybe they'll keep making the same mistakes until they find another family member to exploit. I raised my wine glass. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat in my home office working on plans for my next major project. A $75 million mixed-use development in Detroit that would create affordable housing and retail space in a historically underserved area. As I reviewed the architectural drawings, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Jessica, this is Madison. I got your number from your business website. I wanted you to know that I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I realize now how wrong we all were. Not just about the wedding money, but about how we treated you your whole life. I'm working now, for the first time ever, and I'm starting to understand what it means to earn something instead of just expecting it to be given to you. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that some of us are finally growing up. I hope you're happy, because you deserve to be. I stared at the message for a long time. It was the first genuine apology I'd received from any of them. No conditions, no requests, no guilt trips, just acknowledgement and accountability. I typed back a simple response. Thank you for saying that, I wish you well. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it wasn't cruelty either. It was closure. A year and a half later, Morrison Investment Solutions, had grown into one of the most respected real estate development firms in the Midwest. We had offices in Columbus, Cleveland, and Detroit, with plans to expand into Chicago. Our portfolio was worth over $200 million, and we'd been responsible for creating over 3,000 jobs and 1,500 units of affordable housing. I'd been invited to speak at conferences across the country about sustainable urban development and responsible investment practices. Harvard Business School had featured Morrison Investment Solutions as a case study in their entrepreneurship program. I was 31 years old and had built something that mattered, something that made communities better while also being profitable. But the real measure of my success wasn't in the numbers or the accolades. It was in the life I'd built for myself. I had a core group of friends who genuinely cared about me, not what I could do for them, but who I was as a person. Marcus had moved to Columbus the previous year to take a job at a tech startup, and we had dinner together every Sunday. Sarah had become like a sister to me, the kind of sister who celebrated my successes instead of resenting them. David and his wife had me over for family dinners regularly, treating me like the aunt their kids deserved. I'd started dating someone, Alex, a pediatric nurse I'd met at a charity event for children's literacy. He was kind, funny, completely self-sufficient, and had never once asked me for money or favors. When I told him about my family situation, his response was simple. "That must have been really painful, but it sounds like you made the healthiest choice possible." I'd also started volunteering with a financial literacy nonprofit, teaching young adults from low-income families how to manage money, build credit, and make smart investment decisions. It was deeply satisfying work that felt like the opposite of enabling. Instead of fixing other people's financial mistakes, I was teaching them how to avoid making those mistakes in the first place. On a crisp October morning, I was in my office reviewing the final contracts for the Detroit project when Sarah knocked on my door with an unusual expression on her face. "Jessica, you have a visitor. She says she's your sister, but she looks different from the pictures I've seen." My heart stopped for a moment. Chloe. It had been over 2 years since the motel confrontation, and I hadn't heard from any of them except Madison's single text message. "Should I bring her up?" Sarah asked carefully. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, to maintain the boundaries I'd worked so hard to establish, but another part of me was curious. What could possibly bring Chloe here after all this time? "Give me 5 minutes, then yes." And Sarah, same protocol as last time, document everything. When Chloe walked into my office, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the perfectly styled hair, the designer clothes, the entitled posture. This woman was dressed in simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her face free of the heavy makeup she'd always worn. She looked older, more serious, and somehow more real than I'd ever seen her. "Hi, Jessica," she said quietly, sitting down across from my desk without the dramatic flair she'd once brought to every interaction. "Chloe," I replied neutrally, "this is unexpected." I know you probably don't want to see me, and I understand why. I needed to talk to you. Not to ask for anything," she added quickly, seeing my expression. "I'm not here for money or help or anything like that. I just needed to say some things that I should have said a long time ago." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. There was something different about her energy, something calmer and more grounded than the frantic, attention-seeking sister I remembered. "I'm listening," I said. "I've been in therapy," she began, her hands folded in her lap. "For about a year now. It took losing everything, the apartment, the car, the credit cards, all of it, for me to realize that I had no idea who I was without other people's money. Specifically, without your money." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been working at a daycare center. It doesn't pay much, but I love it. I love the kids, I love feeling useful, I love earning something that's mine. And I've been living with a roommate in a tiny apartment, budgeting every dollar, cooking my own meals. For the first time in my life, I understand the value of money because I'm earning it myself." I didn't respond, but I could feel something shifting inside me, not forgiveness exactly, but a recognition of genuine change. The therapy helped me understand how toxic our family dynamics were. Chloe continued. How Mom and Dad played favorites, how they trained Tyler to expect everything and trained you to give everything, and how I just floated along taking whatever I could get without ever thinking about the cost to you. She looked directly at me then, her eyes clear and steady. I was jealous of you, Jessica, desperately jealous. You were smart and capable and independent, and instead of admiring those qualities, I resented them. I resented that you could take care of yourself when I couldn't even figure out how to do my own laundry. So I participated in the family narrative that you were the selfish one, because it was easier than admitting that I was the useless one. The honesty of that statement hit me harder than I expected. In all the years of family dysfunction, no one had ever acknowledged the reality of our roles or taken responsibility for their part in maintaining them. When we all showed up at that motel room, she said, and you told us about Columbus Capital Holdings, about how you'd foreclosed on our houses without even knowing it was us. I was angry at first. We all were. But then I started thinking about it, and I realized it was the most perfect example of karma I'd ever seen. She smiled ruefully. You spent years bailing us out of our bad financial decisions, and we repaid you by cutting you off when you finally said no. Then we made even worse financial decisions without your safety net, and your business success literally foreclosed on our failures. It was like the universe saying, "You want to cut Jessica out? Fine, let's see how that works out for you." Despite myself, I found the corner of my mouth twitching upward. There was something darkly funny about the cosmic justice of it all. "I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness," Chloe said. "I don't deserve it, and I'm not sure I've earned it yet. I'm still working on becoming someone worthy of a relationship with you, but I wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what we did to you, how we used you, how we took your kindness and generosity and twisted it into obligation and guilt." She stood up, preparing to leave. "I also wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. I always was, but I was too jealous and immature to say it. You built something incredible here, something that matters, and you did it after we tried to destroy your spirit. That takes strength I didn't know anyone possessed." As she reached the door, she turned back one more time. "I know it's probably too late for us to have any kind of relationship, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to become the kind of person who deserves a sister like you. Even if you never want to see me again, I'm going to keep trying." After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, processing what had just happened. This wasn't the sister I remembered, the entitled, manipulative, self-centered girl who had participated in my emotional destruction. This was a woman who had done the hard work of looking at herself honestly and taking responsibility for her actions. I called Marcus that evening and told him about Chloe's visit. "How do you feel about it?" he asked. "Confused," I admitted. "Part of me wants to stay angry to maintain the walls I built, but part of me is curious, I guess, about who she's becoming." "You don't have to make any decisions right now," Marcus said. "You can take all the time you need to figure out if and how you want to engage with her." "What would you do?" "Honestly, I'd probably give her a chance. Not a big chance, not right away, but maybe a small one. People can change, Jess. Not often and not easily, but it does happen. And if she's really doing the work to become a better person, cutting her off might punish the person she's becoming for the crimes of the person she used to be." That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove past my old neighborhood. The house where I'd grown up had been renovated by its new owners and looked better than it ever had when my parents lived there. Tyler's house had been converted into a duplex. The whole area looked more stable, more cared for than I remembered. I wasn't nostalgic, exactly. I didn't miss the chaos or the dysfunction or the constant financial drama. But I found myself thinking about the good moments teaching Chloe to ride a bike, helping Tyler with his math homework, the rare family dinners when everyone was getting along. Those people were still part of my story, even if they were no longer part of my life. On Monday morning, I did something that surprised even me. I looked up the daycare where Chloe worked and sent them an anonymous donation of $10,000 for their after-school program. Not for Chloe, but for the kids she was taking care of. A week later, I received a thank you note from the daycare director, mentioning how grateful they were for the donation and how it would allow them to expand their services to more low-income families. At the bottom, there was a handwritten note. One of our teachers mentioned that she thought this donation might have come from her sister, who she's been telling us about. If that's true, she talks about you with such pride and regret. She's become one of our best teachers, and she's working so hard to become someone better. I thought you should know. I kept that note in my desk drawer, not sure why. 2 months later, as I was leaving the office late one evening, I found Chloe sitting in the lobby. She stood up when she saw me, but didn't approach. "I'm not stalking you," she said quickly. "Sarah said you were working late, and I wondered if you might want to get coffee. Not to talk about the past or ask for anything, just to talk. About your work, about my work, about anything normal." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was still the same person who had participated in my banishment, who had called me selfish and embarrassing. But she was also someone who had lost everything, done the hard work of examining her own failures, and was trying to build something better. "There's a coffee shop around the corner," I said finally, "but I'm buying my own coffee." She smiled, not the manipulative smile I remembered, but something genuine and grateful. I wouldn't have it any other way. We spent an hour at that coffee shop, talking about work, about Columbus, about books we'd read and movies we'd seen. It was strange and tentative, but it was also the first normal conversation I'd ever had with my sister. She told me about the kids at the daycare, about her tiny apartment, about learning to cook and budget and do her own taxes. I told her about the Detroit project, about Alex, about my volunteer work. It wasn't forgiveness, and it wasn't a restoration of our sibling relationship. But it was a beginning of something, maybe friendship, maybe just civility, maybe nothing at all. But it was something I was willing to explore cautiously. As we prepared to leave, Chloe said, "Thank you for giving me a chance to apologize properly. And thank you for the donation to the daycare. I know it was you." "How did you know?" "Because it's exactly the kind of thing you would do, help kids without getting any credit for it." She paused. "You always were the best of us, Jessica. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." As I drove home that night, I realized that my story wasn't really about revenge at all. Yes, there was poetic justice in foreclosing on the family members who had cut me off. Yes, there was satisfaction in building a successful life without their support or approval. But the real victory wasn't in their downfall, it was in my rise. I had learned to value myself independent of their validation. I had built a life filled with meaningful work, genuine relationships, and personal fulfillment. I had discovered that chosen family friends who truly cared about me was more valuable than biological family that only valued what I could provide. The foreclosures, the business success, the moment when they showed up desperate at my office, those were just plot points in a larger story about learning to respect myself enough to demand respect from others. 3 years after that coffee shop conversation, Chloe and I have built something that resembles a friendship. We have dinner once a month, text occasionally, and she's become someone I genuinely enjoy spending time with. She's still working at the daycare, has been promoted to assistant director, and is taking night classes in early childhood education. The rest of the family remains out of my life, and I'm at peace with that decision. Tyler never learned from his mistakes and is currently involved in some cryptocurrency venture that will probably fail spectacularly. My parents are still enabling him while complaining about their own financial struggles. Patricia and Dave are still playing victim, blaming everyone else for their problems. But Chloe did the work. She looked at herself honestly, took responsibility for her actions, and made genuine changes. She earned a second chance by becoming someone worthy of one. Morrison Investment Solutions now manages over $500 million in assets and has been responsible for revitalizing entire neighborhoods across the Midwest. I've been featured in Forbes, spoken at TED Talks, and been offered partnership opportunities with some of the biggest development firms in the country. But I've stayed independent, stayed true to my mission of profitable development that actually helps communities. I have a team of 47 employees who respect my leadership and share my values. I have a beautiful house, a healthy relationship with Alex, and friends who love me for who I am, not what I can do for them. Most importantly, I have self-respect. I have boundaries that I maintain without guilt. I have learned the difference between being generous and being used, between family loyalty and family dysfunction, between helping someone and enabling someone. The woman who once emptied her savings account to bail out family members who never said thank you is gone. In her place is someone who understands that true love, whether romantic, familial, or friendship, is based on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. If you're reading this and recognizing your own family dynamics in my story, I want you to know something. You deserve better. You deserve relationships where your worth isn't measured by your utility. You deserve people who celebrate your successes instead of resenting them. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not what you can provide. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Walking away from toxic family members isn't cruel, it's self-preservation. Building a chosen family of people who actually care about you isn't giving up on family, it's finally understanding what family should be. The foreclosures were poetic justice, but they weren't the real revenge. The real revenge was living well. The real revenge was building a life so full of genuine love, meaningful work, and personal fulfillment that their absence became irrelevant. The real revenge was proving that I never needed them as much as they needed me, and that once I stopped giving them access to my resources, my energy, and my emotional labor, I had more than enough to build something beautiful. To everyone who's dealing with family members who expect your support but offer no respect, who demand your sacrifice but provide no appreciation, who treat you like an ATM rather than a human being, you have the power to change the dynamic. You have the right to say no. You have the option to walk away. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to fund your own mistreatment. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, your worth isn't determined by your family's opinion of you. Your value doesn't depend on their validation. You deserve love that doesn't come with conditions and support that doesn't come with strings attached. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from, and if you have your own story of family boundaries and chosen family. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself and finding your own path to happiness. You're worth more than you know, and you deserve better than you're settling for. Never forget that.